Hello everyone and welcome to another session of AP Human Geography with Mr. Elrod. Today we're going to be continuing on in Unit 4, discussing political organizations of space. And today we're going to move away from the concept of boundaries and we're going to move into the actual states themselves. And so not so much about the people in the state or the structure of the state, but today we're going to be talking about what's called state morphology. So really morphology is just a fancy term to refer to the shape of the state. And so when we talk about morphology, it really gets beyond just the shape of the state, but morphology is, or what we call territorial morphology, is the relationship between the size, shape, location, and political situation that a state finds itself in. What we're going to find as we look over these several different examples is that morphology can have a tremendous impact on the relationship that is existing within the state. How cohesive the state is. Last video we were talking about, well, I guess it's not the last video, sorry, it's actually one of the review videos I just did, apologize for that. I was talking about centrifugal and centripetal forces. State morphology can lend itself greatly to various forms of centripetal and centrifugal forces. It can cause people to feel ostracized. It can cause people to feel connected, depending on the state shape. And of course, a lot of that has to do with not only the geographic location and the shape of the state, but also has to do with the people that are living within the state. And you can also look at the history of the state and things like that. But if you look at the state's shape, it helps you to understand maybe just a little bit better the relationships of the people that live in that state. You can also consider maybe the political precariousness of the situation of a state, especially as it relates to dealing with some of its neighbors. So anyway, one of the things I want you to consider as we're looking at the state shapes is not just what is the shape itself and identifying the shape, but also thinking about what are the benefits and what are the downsides to each of those state shapes. That's really one of the more important things that you need to think about as we're going through these different shapes. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and go through these. There are 5 types of shapes that we're going to be looking at, what are called fragmented, elongated, compact, prorupted, and perforated. Now, as you're looking at those terms, you probably could infer the shape of the state. In fact, what I might encourage you to do is after I give you the shape of the state and the example that I give you, maybe go try to find at least 2 to 3 other examples of states, because I'm only going to go over one example per shape, and that could be, that's a fairly prominent example, so maybe go try and find some others. Don't just Google it, see if you can look at a map and characterize the shape of the state based upon your understanding of the concept. Alright, so the first thing that we'll look at is, you see the example there is Indonesia. I'm probably using a teaching technique that I've forgotten that I even put in this PowerPoint. But anyway, so if we have the state of Indonesia, and you think about the list I just gave you, so what would you assume the state shape to be? Well, that's easy. It's going to be fragmented. So basically what we're talking about when we talk about fragmented state is any state that contains several separate pieces to it. And so you can see the state of Indonesia. Here is a series of several islands that's going to exist in the not the South Pacific, but the South China Sea, north of Australia. So you can see that there. Of course, the United States would be fragmented because we have Hawaii off of us. We have the Keys off the Florida Keys. Anyway, and so there are several examples around the world. Indonesia is just an easy pick. And so you can think about the benefits of that. Anytime a state can add territory to itself, that's going to benefit the state. Why? Well, because you have extra people living on those islands, which people are always, not necessarily natural resources, but they're a resource. People are a resource. They pay taxes. They provide labor for your workforce. They provide for your defense. They provide. They have the potential to provide for either the bureaucracy or innovation within the state and research and development, or just inventions. So people are like a resource, and then also the more territory you control, the more possibility for resources there are. In this map here, you see the discussion on coffee, but other things like timber in Indonesia, potential gas and oil reserves in the sea. Indonesia is actually in really good shape in terms of controlling shipping through East Asia, and so it can collect tariffs and things like that as ships come through its through shipping lanes and things along those lines. Obviously, the downside to it is that you have great separation between the people, and that can lead to some feeling of disconnectedness among the people. And then think about developing an infrastructure, a transportation infrastructure among all the islands. Obviously, that's going to be very difficult to do. So those are some of the benefits and the downsides to having a fragmented state. Our next state we have, our example is Chile. And so maybe you can think about from our list what that might be, and that of course is going to be the elongated. So we're talking about a state that is long and thin, it's stretched out, it's not going to be too wide, and of course it's going to vary in terms of what we mean by thin and long and stretched out, but obviously Chile is a good example of this. And so you think about Chile's situation, again, pretty much in each of these situations, if it is able to incorporate more territory, then that's going to be a benefit to the state. So in Chile's situation, again, you have you extend the territory. It contains people, contains potentially natural resources. In Chile's situation, it gives it access to the ocean. So not only for trade, but also for any type of oceanic exploration in terms of fishing industry, also in terms of natural resources like gas and oil, things along those lines. Now, some of the downsides to it, obviously, people on either end of the extreme of the country, either to the north or to the south, might feel like they are left out. Same thing with infrastructure. You think about the Andes Mountains running down Chile, the difficulty of creating infrastructure that's going to connect north to south, even potentially east to west because of the mountain range. Think about if Chile had a conflict with Argentina, you have a very long border here, difficult to defend that long border. It would be very difficult for Argentina to maybe slice right across. Chile can disconnect it north to south. Now you'll notice what Chile did is they placed Santiago as their capital, and you'll see several states that are large and they cover large amounts of territory, or they're kind of in a precarious situation like this. You place the capital towards the center, so it try to placate the people of the north and the south, very similar to what the United States did with putting Washington, D.C. kind of in the middle of the east coast of the original 13 colonies, trying to kind of placate the north and the south. Our next one we have, maybe not the best example. I think I've confused some students on this one, and that is going to be the compact state. Now, the reason I say that I confuse some students sometimes is because you'll look at this little tail here that Austria has. You could consider that a proruption. So I apologize. I don't mean to confuse anybody, but I think Austria is a good example of a compact state. It's it's fairly small. You do have this small proruption, but for the rest of it, it's fairly compact. Again, typically they're going to be smaller states. They're going to be states that are the center is not too far off from any one part of the state, and so of course the benefit to this is going to be the feeling of connectedness that the people have. If you're a conspiracy theorist or something like that, you could think about the feeling of control that a state might have over its people, and the ability to kind of to monitor the people, to control the people, things like that. So obviously the benefit to that is going to be connectedness. It's going to be maybe some I don't want to say stability within society, but certainly everyone feels connected, like they're part of the state. Nobody feels too far off. Obviously the downside to it is going to be smaller territory, which tends to mean that you're going to have fewer resources, not just in natural resources, but also in the way of people. It's harder to fit as many people in the country. Benefits would be ease of defense, because you don't have as many borders to defend. Now, if you look at Austria's situation, it borders many countries, and so that might cause a problem diplomatically if you're trying to create good relationships with multiple countries. And downside to it in terms of defense would be that you're such a small country that it wouldn't be very hard for one country to maybe overtake you. So again, you just kind of have to think about the situation of that country, and you think about like a Switzerland as to why they might try to play the neutral party that they have is because of their size and territory and things along those lines. Our next, I believe our next to last, our example here is Myanmar or Burma. And again, you can find many examples of this, but this is the Prorupted state. So in this situation, a prorupted state is a state that has a peace that juts away from the main body. And so you'll see this little tail here off of Burma, and you could also consider Thailand to be a prorupted state. And so again, it's pretty much the same conversation over and over again. You benefit because you take in more territory, take in more people. In this situation, Myanmar is given more coastline. The downside is feeling of disconnectedness, the people who are down here on this tail, the ease potentially of invasion from Thailand, more difficulty for defense, things along those lines. Our last one is going to be the perforated state. Now this is the one that students constantly get confused, so please make sure you pay attention to this one. The perforated state is when a state completely surrounds another state. So in this example, I have South Africa and Lesotho. So based on that definition, which one would you think is the perforated state? The perforated state is South Africa. Students constantly think that the answer is Lesotho. Lesotho is an enclave within South Africa. South Africa is perforated. Okay, Lesotho does the perforating. Okay, so a perforated state is when a state completely surrounds another state. So the benefit to the perforated state is, in this situation, the ability to control another country in terms of economics. Okay, South Africa is pretty much going to be able to dictate terms to Lesotho in terms of trade, goods coming in or out. That might be one of the only benefits of that situation. Clearly, you have a state within your state, so you want to be on good terms with it. It could be a source of agitation, especially if, in Lesotho's case, a fairly poor country, people trying to get out maybe move to another country, and so you might have issues and situations with that. And so I think it would be fairly simple to see maybe not the benefits, but definitely the downsides to a perforated state. And it looks like we have another chance for a quiz ferret. Our dear quiz ferret friend has poked his furry little head out of the ground. He has a question for us. The question today is, which state shape is most likely to lead to conflict within the state? Now, you could probably make a case for most of the state shapes, but I'm going to go with the fragmented state. And the reason that I say that is because the fragment really shows clear separation between states. And so I would think that in a lot of cases, the fragmentation is going to lead to a potential drive for independence for states and things like that. Now again, you can probably make your own case, and I think that really the benefit there is for you to make a decision for yourself, and then make the case and draw your own conclusion about which one leads to difficulty. But anytime you have a fragmentation, people are completely separate. They may not feel like they are well represented. They may not feel like the government cares a whole lot about them. You might have a situation where it's difficult to get resources and infrastructure out to them, so that's going to lead to additional strife. Well, I appreciate you watching. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below. And as always, feel free to leave me suggestions for different topics you'd like for me to cover, and I hope to see you next time.